Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Pundits Pundit. My name is Scott Morgan with Motor City Mad Mouth. Glad to have you with us on this Thursday night. And I'll get to the intros of the crew. Then I have some other business we have to take care of. First of all, we have George Icorn. George, welcome back.
Thanks, Scott. Good to be here. Looking forward to the Tonight Show.
Okay, Jacob Christner.
Hey, how's it going tonight?
It's going okay. And Denzel Snipes.
Hey, what's going on?
Not a whole lot. We're on. That's what's going on. So, all right, let me let everybody know that Pundits Pundit is being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Pundits Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? One way to do it is participate in the chat room. Also, send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. Twitter/X @Tribune South. Candy Ebling is producing tonight as well as behind the scenes. I have a book out there called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, available on Kindle and Amazon. That's a book that addresses old school media versus new school media. Also, NGBN TV will launch on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon, Fire, and mobile devices. It will be in 85% of the homes in the U.S. and Canada and 4.1 billion mobile devices. With that said, I'll turn the microphone over to Denzel Snipes. Obviously, we're running a little bit tight. We're a little tight on time tonight, but we're going to make sure we address every bit on the agenda that we have to do. So with that said, Denzel, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. And so with that being said, we'll go ahead and get the festivities started. Also, make sure that you like and follow Sideline Sports on Twitter, X, and LinkedIn as well. All right. So getting into our first topic here, and that is J.J. Redick. He denounced zone defense in youth basketball. So I went on and dug up the clip about this, and he goes on this semi-rant where he actually calls it a cheat code. He says that they must learn how to play man-to-man at that age, the age of 9 and 10 years old. He also relays that they can't pass or shoot unless they get a running start. He's very critical about today's youth basketball play. He said that running zone basically is a means to stay in ball games because they're too lazy to teach man-to-man. Now, we have gone on as far as how the game has changed on the old Basket Bros show and a little bits of pieces here and there throughout our commentary, throughout our shows. But I want to start off with Jacob Christner and get your thoughts about J.J. Redick going off on zone versus man-to-man in youth basketball.
Well, I mean, he's completely correct because zone is essentially three players. It's essentially three players cherry picking. You know, a couple of them are halfway through to the net. You know, what I mean, they're 50 feet away. Mm-hmm. You know, right then and there. So there's the big issue that we have. And on man-to-man, people have got to get back. They got to work. They got to do the ball, and then they got to get back. And it's like it's extra work. Where remember all the zone that you play. Remember when Bird used to steal the ball?
Right.
Remember he used to steal the ball. It'd be about 60 feet away, but he's playing as a free safety. Just to that moment, but there's other man-to-men. Now you got three that are doing that, and I mean he's completely correct. And there's a lot that don't know how to play man-to-man. They always there's to the point where the players, AAU players, are making fun of Gary Payton saying he wouldn't make it in this league as a defenseman, and it's like no, it's the fact that he'd be the only one making it. He'd be the only one making it. He'd be stealing it at will, you know, just because he knew how to be able to play the man.
Right.
So there's the issue with that. It's like, of course he's right on the kind of thing. And truthfully, are you a man-to-man guy or a zone guy? I'm asking you. Do you like man-to-man better or do you like zone better?
Whatever works. I'm probably more of a zone guy unless you go ISO. Of course, you got to go man-to-man.
Yeah. Well, the ISO comes from, I just say the James Harden deal, you know?
Yeah.
But there's where I'm at, though. It's you got to remember he was 15 years in the league. He was just before AAU got huge,
right?
And it's like AAU plays this whole zone thing. And what if I hypothetically became coach and did that? Did the man-to-man thing? It's like, is anybody going to listen? You almost have to go to a small school where nobody cares, and parents want this.
Right.
So there's the whole thing there.
Yeah, I mean, with something like this, and some will call it the evolution of basketball, but of course, you have some critics and everything who thinks like, well, this isn't the game that we all come to know and love. This isn't the game that has been played. We've rehashed it over and over, on basketballs. But I want to swing it over to George Eichhorn and get your thoughts about this. Do you see anything wrong with JJ Redick's statements?
No, I don't really, guys. I agree with you. I think that the coaches that are, you know, coaching our young men and women in basketball, they've got to learn all types of defenses. You can't just teach one defense and preach one defense. Even if you have a 20 or 30 game schedule when you're that young, you do have to try and learn different facets of the game. Now, I think JJ could also be more productive if he does a little bit of research and also approaches, the AAU, or if it took it up to the next level, my God, NCAA. But I'm just saying, JJ, not just your mouth, okay? I appreciate you bringing it up. But now, if you want to really make something happen, try to be like a guest speaker at a coach's clinic or a coach's conference, or go to your local state or municipality or your own church or school league. I mean, and talk this up, because it is very important. And I think he's hitting on a very good point. These kids got to be ready for all kinds of things, and it's the same with another sport like baseball. If you just have the designated hitter the whole time and you never teach a kid how to hit because, oh, he's a pitcher, no, that's a mistake. You expose the young again to the different types of positions in baseball, and especially hitting, and not just sitting on the bench when it comes time for a pitcher to bat. That's my only fault with the DH. But getting back to your point, no, he's in the right. He's in the right. But what I'm saying is take it a step further, JJ, and get yourself in front of some of these coaches or some of these legislative bodies that govern the sport of basketball here in the United States, and maybe you'll have a bigger impact on it.
Yeah, maybe so. They said like nowadays it's just raining threes even down at the youth level. So not everybody's all in agreement with what is being taught to the kids nowadays, and who knows if it'll end up biting them by the time they grow up. And you know what? And in some aspects it just might, because they're running zone right now and everything. And then their first taste of man-to-man might be middle school ball or even higher than that. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, shoot, what's man-to-man? Now they're just letting people blow past them because they don't know the technique of how to guard somebody man-to-man. But I want to round this up with Scott and get your thoughts about this. Do you agree with J.J. Redick's statements, or are you a little indifferent?
Well, I could tell you all kinds of things of what I think of JJ Redick, but then I'd probably get barred from talking on this platform. But really, if it were up to me, I'd denounce JJ Redick, okay? Because here's a guy that makes a living debating Stephen A. Smith, is what he does. That's all this guy does. He couldn't last in old school basketball if he tried. He thinks his brand of basketball is good. Okay, well, why do you think the NBA has to go to a play-in tournament just to cultivate interest? Why do you need an in-season tournament to cultivate interest? Okay, does he make a valid point as far as zone defense? Probably a little bit, but I don't think I care about anything this guy has to say. To me, J.J. Redick, okay, if he was so smart, he should be going out there to get a coaching job instead of sitting behind a microphone. He needs to go out there and learn from lessons from the microphone instead of making a living debating Stephen A. Smith, because this guy, to me, is an absolute fool is what he is. Now, I like the references made with Gary Payton and James Harden. I like the cherry picking, but regardless of that, coaching at the youth levels, what do you think you're getting at coaching at the youth levels? Okay, you're getting individuals out here that are looking to coach younger kids and doing everyday jobs. Are you hiring professional and college coaches at the youth levels? You got to remember what you have there, okay? Before you understand how you coach it there. That's what I've always thought. But I think JJ Redick, to me, is the last person that I would view as credible of anybody. He really makes me sick. One of the when I find out that he's on the air, I don't even watch. Okay, because I get really sick to my stomach. I would rather eat my cooking, which is awful, okay, 4-minute grilled cheese sandwich in a microwave, than watch this cotton picking knucklehead on the air telling anybody what to do. If you're so smart, JJ Redick, Get out there and coach at the college level, even high school. How many times have you seen coaches start at the high school, move on to college, and ultimately the pros? That's how I look at it.
4 minutes with grilled cheese. I'm gonna have to remember that.
Yeah, no, you really don't if you don't want your dentist bill to go ahead and be high.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
my USF days when I thought I could actually do pretty good. When I cooked that sandwich, I'll tell you what, the dentist bill could be high. Luckily, I knew it was smart enough. I could have thrown that grilled cheese sandwich through a triple pane window, man.
Wow.
No,
I mean,
no. Here's the question.
That's what you call the equivalent to a rock in the food industry.
There's one question I have for Denzel, and it's like, this is what I think about. What if I coach an AAU team?
Right.
What if I taught them the man-to-man, all of them, and they start stealing the ball at will, and they start playing well, and they, and doing that stuff and forcing shots? I have to wonder how many of the coaches the opposing coaches would throw a fit, because the whole idea is supposed to be all offense, and I'm teaching defense, and they're getting their offense off the defense.
Right.
How many are going to throw a fit at me? That's what I have to wonder.
Let them. It's your team.
Oh,
You're on your team.
I'm just saying. Oh, it is my team. I wouldn't listen anyway. But I'm asking, how many people are going to throw a fit, because we don't see that man to man.
Yeah. No, that's true. But just because, but you run your team the way you deem fit, the way you see fit to win ball games. You remember when I don't know if you remember this, but there was criticisms on James Harden play, and then Kevin Durant came out and said, hey, he's playing within the rules of the game. So with that being said, and I know no one on this panel is really a fan of James Harden, but the context is this: as long as you're playing within the rules of the game, they really don't have too much to say. Now, once you step outside of those boundaries, that's a different story. But if you're doing what you got to do to win games, and you're staying within the rules of the game, no one has really anything credible to say against you.
Exactly. And that is true. And I'm with Scott on the deals with that with JJ. I'm no fan of JJ Redick. I was just thinking this is going to be an interesting thing, not for him, but for the idea of how many, and it's your team, how many coaches would throw that fit if you decided to go old school and they listen and you start winning.
Yeah.
How many coaches can truly coach? That they're throwing the fit, because there are ones that would be. Remember how many times are we seeing 100? Remember we talked about Grambling State the other night with the girls. We're seeing a lot more of those games.
Yeah.
How many coaches would start throwing a fit if you did it right?
Yeah. Well, it just means they can't coach.
Yeah. I would leave Grambling State alone. I understand where you're coming from, but the reality of the situation is staying on point with JJ Knucklehead Redick, okay, zone defense. I mean, remember the movie Hoosiers, where you had Gene Hackman preaching a different defense than the other guy that came in that wanted to coach until he got booted out of there? Who got to the finals and who didn't, okay? So, we compare zone defense will only work in these parts, okay, and not man-to-man. We can't go out there and deal with this group. Give me a break, okay? I don't need a bunch of barbershop people telling me how to coach. You bring in a guy to do a job, you expect him to implement his philosophy to do what he's got to do right. But JJ Redick needs to sit on the coach's bench before he keeps shouting his mouth. Conversation over, topic over.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, we'll go on to our next topic, and that is with CJ McCollum and his scholars program, which he actually announced on MLK Day. This is the McCollum Scholars Program, where he's spreading out 80,000 scholarships, to 10 New Orleans schools. It helps underserved communities pursue a bachelor's degree, or students in underserved communities, rather. Each scholar will receive a $20,000 scholarship over the course of 4 years. On their senior year of high school, they'll receive counseling and cohort engagement during their senior year. I think that's awesome. I really, really love to see athletes really give back to communities and everything. And so I want to go to Jacob and get your thoughts about this, because this is really huge, especially for a city like New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. This is where we need to. This is what we need to see. We really, truly need to see something like this around. Remember, they're working on a situation where they're trying to do school choices now and get people out there, get the younger people in the private schools, well as any school that they choose. But how, for as much as you do that, how many can afford? And it's like, are these going to be, these are just for colleges? How long before he could see if they can go to private schools? They have a school choice, you know?
Right.
And you could be able to do that. There's a lot of kids that can't afford to go to college, so this is wonderful. But are they getting the proper education in the public level?
Right.
And there's where, and that's the big thing. It's like, which schools are there? The next thing he could do, possibility, it's like using his money. As long as he goes, he could use it to fix up some of those public schools that need it. You know, and that thing, you know, they would help that. There are private schools that might need it. Who knows? There's a billion things that he could do. This is a great start. Maybe this is a nonprofit. You know, not just himself, but maybe it's a nonprofit. There's a bunch of things that can be done for New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Right, absolutely. You know, and I have family members, you know, in New Orleans and everything, and you know, when you go and you look at some of the areas of that city and everything, and you know, going back to when Katrina hit and everything and such, and the crazy part about it is they've rebuilt it since then, but there are certain areas that are still the same, certain areas that are still impoverished. So nothing improved in those areas at all. You know, I'm talking about the inner cities, you know, the impoverished areas and things like that. Something like this is huge because it gives the kids hope at the end of the day. It gives them hope. You know, here is somebody that they watch on television play basketball for their Pelicans, you know, and it's like, wow, you know, like he's, you know, giving to us and giving us an opportunity. And I think that it's really great that they could take something like this and turn it into something positive. When you live in an area like that and you get, you know, a scholarship, you essentially are turning a negative into a positive. Let's not forget, you know, a lot of these athletes, basketball, football, you know, baseball, that, you know, a lot of them came from impoverished areas where literally all they had was a ball, you know, and they had two choices: either fall into local crime or learn how to play ball and get out of there, you know.
Absolutely. And you think about this. There's a story back. Quincy Jones's son at birth, Quincy the third, got a right at this moment of his birth. He got a bond for like $150,000 from Frank Sinatra for all of his college being paid.
Yeah.
Done.
Wow.
At that time. Yeah, Frank got it for Quincy the third.
Yeah.
He still got that bond hung up in his office. And it's like he's got that. But Quincy Jones is a exceptionally wealthy man and famous man. And that was just a great friendship with Frank, you know, and to be able to do that. There are ones out there. CJ's basically doing that for the poor community, the ones that are not known. And that's, you know, to be able to do that kind of thing. And how far can he take this? That's my thing, and I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to swing it to George and get your thoughts about this right here. CJ McCollum giving back to people who really, really need it.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy. I really do like to hear these kind of stories. They warm your heart, and they make things look a little bit better for the future of these young men and women, young girls and boys, if you don't mind. He's been doing things like this, you know, throughout his career. Back in, I think it was 2016, he opened up a center in Portland, you know, for the Blazers Boys and Girls Club. And he spent the money, his own money, to bring in new computers, books, art, and all kinds of learning tools. So CJ's got a good track record of doing things like this, which is really, really nice. And one of the other things that I know would be of interest to us guys too, he's interested in them becoming journalists. He's got an initiative called CJ's Press Pass.
Right.
And what it does is it grants the aspiring journalists, these young, you know, men and women, girls and boys, access to some of the post-game news conferences. So he's exposing them to an opportunity to attend a news conference or a media event, if you will, after the game, which is fantastic, and try to get some personalized mentoring going on from not just him, but members of the media. So he's done a lot of great things. You know, when I read up on him, I'm very impressed by him. I mean, everybody in all the cities, of course, we see this happening with different levels, if you will. You know, Matthew Stafford and his wife Kelly put a lot of money into improving the football fields in Detroit. The Detroit Lions, you know, under Bill Ford, they started their own academy, to help kids in the inner city go to school in perhaps maybe a more comfortable or welcome setting. So they started a little charter school called Detroit Lions Academy. And I mean, we can go on and on. I mean, there's so many wonderful things. And I think people need to hear some of these stories about what some of the pro athletes do, because it does give hope. Like you said, it gives hope to the inner city. It gives hope to the urban situation that these boys and girls and their parents face. So hats off. I'm all for it, and appreciate you doing that, CJ. Continue your great work.
Yep, the mark of a great man. Sometimes it's not about how well off you are, but how well off you can make other people. And not sitting here saying that you're, giving away handouts or, to undeserving people or anything like that. He's not exactly going to the Hamptons and doing this,
Yeah.
They can pay for it tomorrow. All right. We're talking about ones who really are in need of this. So I want to round this topic out with Scott and get your thoughts about this. CJE, McCollum going and giving back to the needy. Your thoughts?
Well, I've been in New Orleans during the worst times and the best times. I actually had a chance to see the 1982 Final Four when Michael Jordan won it all. Seen a lot of Lions games there over at the Superdome. But I'm going to tell you one thing, and I've seen Hurricane Katrina. I didn't go ahead and get whacked by those tour buses to drive around there. I took my vehicle, had a good enough sense of direction, and saw it all by myself. And as long as I knew my way back to the media hotel, I was all right, because I was covering the New Orleans Bowl. That was unfortunate what happened with Hurricane Katrina. It really, really was. And if I had a digital camera, I don't know, would I really want to even take pictures of that, knowing everybody did it anyways? No, but it was a sad sight to see. And I still feel for those people in New Orleans. Guys like CJ McCollum, to me, get Walter Payton Awards in the National Football League for doing stuff like this. They really, really do. And obviously, it seems like every stop that he goes, he's got an incredible heart. I'm not saying other NBA players don't do it, but it's ones that are low-key, that continue to do the right thing, that don't get enough of the rightful publicity that they need. I like the Matthew Stafford reference, George. It's a really good reference out there. But the reality is once upon a time, New Orleans failed in basketball. Pistol Pete Maravich could not keep the New Orleans Jazz in the Bayou State, And I don't think, and at that particular time, I think it was more toward the end of his prime anyways. Obviously he had some good years there, but injuries certainly sidetracked his career. So we do need a lot more CJ McCallums is what we do. And again, two franchises have been benefited by it, the Portland Trailblazers and the New Orleans Pelicans. And you're right. We don't need these stories during Christmas time. We need them throughout the course of the year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Absolutely.
Good point.
Things like this that go throughout the course of the year, just the summer, the fall, like any time, any news like this is always good news, whether it occurs in December or in September, and any time in between, October, August, whatever, But no, this is really, really awesome, and it also gives the opportunity to where, Floyd Mayweather has his own camp. And Gervonta Davis, boxer, he actually was the first to come out of that camp and win a championship, See, it breeds things like this, because you don't know who may come out with something like this and then they go on to be the next Josh Dobbs, getting an aerospace engineering degree and such, It's letting them know that, sure, we have some talented people who can play ball, but those who can't play ball, they can make themselves a success. There are a lot of great inventors in history, a lot of great, they're few and far in between, but I'm not going to mention that name. I'm not going to say the P word on the air, okay? But some of them were good. But then there was a guy in history by the name of Thurgood Marshall. Ever heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
Turned out to be a pretty decent guy, right? Never know who may come out as a result of this being the starting point of that kid's life, life, So with that being said, I want to go on to our third topic here, and that is Brad Holmes' journey to the NFL. So those of y'all who don't recognize who Brad Holmes is, there actually was a little snippet right after the Lions had won their, I think they won against the Rams. and they were going in an elevator, and they were headed upstairs, and he was the guy that was real fired up. He was like, yeah, and he was in the middle of the crowd on the elevator. That was Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes is the executive vice president and the general manager of the Detroit Lions. In college, he actually was a 4-year letterman defensive tackle at North Carolina A&T, where he won the Mid-East Atlantic Conference Championship and also the HBCU National Championship while there. Unfortunately, he got into a car accident in 1999 that left him comatose. It was about a 2-year recovery, but after a full recovery, he played his final season in 2001. This man is probably most known for his scouting abilities, aside from piecing together the team that you see right now. But he was known for his scouting abilities because it's why it's ironic he was going against his old team, because he spent a lot of time as a scout for the St. Louis/LA Rams. He was responsible of putting together the mob squad, which included players such as Aaron Donald, Jared Goff, Cooper Kupp, Corey Littleton, and Farrell Cooper. So I want to start off with Jacob here and get your thoughts about Brad Holmes' journey to the NFL and the impact that he has on today's game.
And just think about this for a second. He was an Enterprise Rent-A-Car.
Yes, he was. He sure was.
So he's your rental. You know there's going to be somebody out there. If he wins the Super Bowl, he rented my car.
Yeah.
No, it's like that just shows something. It's like you can start from anywhere. At any time, you can be able to make it somewhere, And we're going to, the thing is, we're going to start seeing stories like this with women coaches now.
Yep.
And we're going to, and remember who started that one? That was Bruce Arians.
Yes.
We're going to start seeing these now. It's like, really, overall, these are such stories, and it's like, it doesn't mean, you know what this means with getting to the NFL and getting to the NBA and getting to all these is, we're going to see less fraternity. Less fraternity with something like this. Someone can, we're saying an Enterprise Rent-A-Car. He gets himself, where did he come from? Where is this? Starts from college. Or here's the thing, maybe not less fraternity, but more along in it. Mm-hmm. It's just depending on which. We're going to see more of this. And it's like, that's not color, that's not religion, that's not anything. It's everyone.
Right.
And that's what we're going to start seeing.
More now. Diversity as well.
The what?
More diversity as well.
Here's the thing. Proper diversity.
Yes, proper diversity. But you are right. No more good old boy system.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, proper diversity. When I hear the word diversity and I'll see the thing, it was like you'd see a TV show. Yeah, diversity. We have one black guy with 3 white.
Yeah.
2 white girls. It's like, huh?
Or you think like the Rooney Rule or something like that.
Yeah. Remember California Dreams? It's like they after the 3rd season, they actually put a Latina, a black guy, 2 whites, and then another black girl. They put that. See, that's diversity.
Right.
And that's the whole point. When you say diversity, the media uses diversity as as just like a pandering tool for anything. It's not real diversity. Real diversity is everybody. That's what I make, and I'm going to do it on the pundit point tonight. Real diversity is everyone. Every single person. And if we don't get to that point and understand that, then we're going to keep going to war on each other. Everyone needs a chance to succeed. And Brad Holmes is that excuse. Brad Holmes is that example, And he really did it. And now he could hit the Super Bowl very easily.
Yes. He has the easiest path to the national championship, to the NFC title game for a team not named San Francisco. But I want to get your thoughts, George Eichhorn, for your Lions. Pretty heck of a dude. So get your thoughts about Brad Holmes.
Well, I tell you what, the Detroit Lions were blessed to find him available and to sign him. Like you mentioned, he was with the St. Louis Rams as a scout first, and then with St. Louis and LA Rams after they moved as director of college scouting. But there is football blood in his family, as Scott and I know, because we used to interview this former Detroit Lion. Luther Bradley is Brad's uncle. And Luther was a fine player in the NFL. He had some great years as a Detroit Lion, and then went on to a very successful career with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan as a sales rep. Luther Bradley, and again, I'm sure obviously. Luther put in some really good words of advice to the Ford family or to Chris Spielman, whoever was doing the interviewing, and when the Lions were looking for their new general manager. But no, I've got the utmost respect for the man. He had some tough times, as you mentioned about the car accident and things like that, and he also did some internships in public relations and media relations for both the Atlanta Hawks and the St. Louis Rams. He's very gifted, a very gifted young man. He's very talented. He knows how to size up talent. Obviously, some of the great draft choices the Detroit Lions have made over the past few years. So he's an integral part, obviously, of the success story of the Detroit Lions. And they'd be wise to snap him up and extend his contract right now instead of I don't know how many years he had. I don't recall how many it was for, but if the Lions are going to continue the success they've enjoyed this year, they obviously want to have Campbell and Holmes as their top two executives. And again, Chris Spielman's done a great job too behind the scenes. The Ford family brought him in too, as well as a consultant role. So yeah, I mean, I it's great. I mean, the Lions have struggled with the Rooney Rule and the interview process that you have to go through with having a representation from the black football coaches and assistants. But Martin Mayhew was a general manager here before. He did a nice job. Of course, it was buried because the Lions were, running some bad teams out on the field back then. But no, I applaud the Lions. I applaud Brad. I really think it's a good relationship. He gets along really well with obviously the coaching staff and the executives in the front office, and has done a tremendous job. So I was pleased to see that he was going to be on our discussion points tonight.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? As far as in the league, when you think of like general manager, and he wears both hats, he wears general manager and executive vice president. But in the context of general manager, coach combos, right? And you got Bill Belichick, who actually wore both of those hats, so there was no real teammate there, because he was general manager and head coach. But I mean, what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have done in these last 2 seasons have given that city a reason to believe. They've given them a reason to believe, regardless of what may happen for the rest of the season for the Detroit Lions. This is the furthest they had been in decades, and just know it was Holmes. He put the team together. You got Dan Campbell. You got a quarterback. You have one of the best teams in the NFC, literally. And it's been a long time since we've heard Detroit Lions and best team in the NFC in the same sentence.
True. True.
Forever.
But with that being said, there's a lot of people we work with on both networks that weren't even born yet the last time we uttered those words, But with that being said, Brad Holmes is an integral part to the Lions' success. And I want to round it out with Scott. You grew up watching the team and everything, and get your thoughts on Brad Holmes, his journey to the NFL, and his impact with the organization.
Well, number one, Monty Clark many, many years ago wore both hats too. It didn't work out as well for the Lions. They got a playoff run out of it. And of course, they had Billy Sims, but other than that, he did wear them. But back to Brad Holmes, we all know that the Rooney Rule has been flawed through the years. And yes, the Lions and every team, I don't want to sit here and pinpoint the Lions for being the only violator. Owners are going to hire who they want no matter what. How do we know they're not having token interviews for the sake of just going out there and doing it to comply? But when the NFL decided to incentivize it and give a couple more draft choices, well, come on, draft choices are like gold, right? You don't know who you're going to find. They're called hidden gems. You ever heard of them? The guys that you don't think are any good that turn out to be pretty good,
Like Brock Purdy.
Yeah. You never know where that draft choice is coming up. You really don't. I mean, even some of these compensatory picks, it could be that Brock Purdy type of guy. But the reality of the situation is this, okay? Brad Holmes, is a minority candidate. The Lions had Martin Mayhew, but this guy's a genius. He really is. And I think that when you talk about good young coaches, you don't know where your next good young coach is. You never know when your next good general manager is going to be. I believe Dan Campbell signed a 6-year contract. I think Holmes is right around the same amount. So they're going to be tied together for a while. I don't think the Ford family's broke. They can afford to pay him, and they will, especially knowing what we're seeing here. here during the winter. I mean, think about it. This city's buzzing. What did they get? $20 million in their pocket because of the last game that they hosted. Obviously it was against. Oh, I'm really drawing a blank now, George. It was only the Rams. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, and you're right, Scott.
So you're talking about a $20 million boost. So just because Deion Sanders didn't think the Ford family could go ahead and afford him, Barry Sanders wasn't a bad draft choice, as we know after all. Anyhow, I'd take him over Deion all day long. But Brad Holmes is the one who fleeced the Rams. Yeah, we'll go ahead and trade you Stafford or Goff, and let's pony up a couple draft choices, So is Brad Holmes going to be the next Red Auerbach, where I don't want to deal with this guy. Who knows what he's got up his bag of tricks? Who knows what the next fleece job is? Because he's on a pace to be the next Red Auerbach. You ever think you'd have Red Auerbach and Brad Holmes in the same sentence? Only on Pundits, Pundit, you will. Boy, everybody likes to get me keyed up on this show. You never know what's going to come out. And no, sorry, disappoint you. I have iced tea, so it's okay.
Well,
there's really Mountain Dew in there.
Remember,
I had that earlier, Denzel. Don't worry. I was cranked up. I got so much work done. It was ridiculous, but that's for another day and another time. But in all fairness, they're going to keep these guys. They will. They have to pay a little bit of money, but the Ford family can go out there and pay them, and they want to. Why not? Think of all the mistakes that they've made over the years. But, everybody's so on the national level, okay, everybody is feeling good about it, okay? But for a lot, and let me tell you, they're all happy that the Lions are doing pretty well. I don't mind seeing the Lions on Stephen A's A-list multiple times, and I never thought I'd be alive to see it anymore. Or, but they're on that A-list a lot for a reason, because they progressed, they've drafted well, and they brought in some timely veterans when they need to. But, the Rooney Rule, say what you want about the validity of it, but if you have to sprinkle in a couple draft choices to get ownership to go ahead and do it, well, not the worst thing in the world. How many people get thrown in jail for blackmail and fraud, right? Okay. So I don't think this goes to that level, blackmail or fraud. But if you want to incentivize it to get the right hires, you do it. And Brad Holmes is just a great example of what can happen, that every individual, whether they're white, black, purple, gold, or whatever, they all have a brain. They all have two legs. They all have two arms. They're capable of making good decisions as well. You have some that work out, some that don't work out. It is what it is. But don't tell that to Jared Mayo, who was the hand-picked successor for New England to replace Bill Belichick. I don't care what color you are. As long as you can do the job, you can do the job. On our network, I don't care. I love having African Americans and non-African Americans. It's about what you have between your head, intelligence, and the ability to come across, communicate in the right manner to get the job done. So, yeah, I'm happy with the Lions. I'm certainly now we're going to find out how good he is when he loses his two coordinators during, after the hiring cycle, and Aaron Glenn goes away and Ben Johnson, and we all know what that was like in Philadelphia, but we'll save that for another day. But the Lions right now can enjoy what they've got to do, and Holmes and Campbell will have to figure out what they're going to do after the fact. All right.
Remember what you said about Red Auerbach and Brad Holmes. Red Auerbach would be the type to hire a Brad Holmes, even back in the day.
True.
He would have been, because he put Bill Russell as the coach first.
Right.
Black coach ever. So
yes.
Great comparison on that, actually.
Yeah, well, again, Bill Russell, you added him to the mix, sure. I mean, Brad Holmes is an outright genius, and I think the Rams know it too. But, the bottom line is he got an upward move to become a general manager is what he did. And therefore the NFL has a philosophy that everybody can apply for another job as long as it's a promotion from what they are doing.
Right.
And that's exactly what the Lions took advantage. And there are a lot of organizations benefiting it from too. Right now, we're looking at the Lions because we all know where they're at and what they're hoping to do over the weekend by beating the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Okay, the one more, though, you guys forgot the Boston thing? K.C. Jones.
Right.
Another great Celtic coach. In fact, a couple of us in the media were trying to lobby Jack McCloskey to bring him in for an interview when he bounced Scotty Robertson, and before he picked Chuck Daly, the sportscaster named Cameron tried to get K.C. Jones an interview in Detroit, and it just never happened. I don't know why. I never talked to Trader Jack if he ever thought about K.C. Jones, but we all know the rest is history, of course. I digress here for Chuck Daly, God rest his soul. K.C. Jones, though, with another great Celtic coach.
Yeah, but you know what? You can sit there and get into 9 million examples, George. It doesn't make any difference. Let's keep the focus on Brad Holmes, okay? He's a genius. He's like Red Auerbach. We know where the Lions are. We know where the Celtics were. The Lions have yet to get to a Super Bowl, but I'll tell you what, if they do get to a Super Bowl, there'll be an awful lot of statues sitting around Ford Field for that unbelievable accomplishment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't foresee the owner or anything like that pulling a Jerry Jones and running a literal successful coach out of town because of his own ego. I just don't foresee that from the Ford family. Hell, I don't foresee that for any of the other 31 NFL franchises because only he's stupid enough to do so. But
right.
That's neither here nor there. That's our topics for this evening. Now we're going on to Pundits Points. So I'm going to swing it on over to the grand fisherman himself, catching sharks every day, Mr. Scott, Motor City, Mad Mouth. Take it away.
Well, if you're in Florida, you got to have to deal with a lot of snakes too, but that's beside that'll be another opportunity for another day if I really want to have a Pundits Point. But now I'll start off with Pundits Point, okay, and it goes to Mike Tomlin. Okay, he's walking out earlier when a reporter asked him about his contract. You know what, Mike? Let me give you some good advice. And I'm a reporter. I have a job to do. A no comment would have worked. Okay, no comment. If you have to say no comment 1 or 2 times, do it. Don't forget the fact that reporters have to do their job, Mike. You're not the only one. Period. That's all I can tell you. I realize it's a contentious situation. They haven't extended you. You have another year left anyways, and the Rooneys will deal with it. But let's face the reality. They're entitled to do their job. We're all in the media. We have to understand a no comment would have worked. All right, Jacob, go ahead.
Yeah. This is my thing on the Rooney Rule. We've been bringing this up tonight. That had to do with Brad Holmes and all this kind of stuff. Here's the thing. I'm going to tell this to all the coaches in the league and all the what you said it yourself, Denzel, good old boys. I'm going to say it with every single person. You want the Rooney Rule to end? It's called merit. Stop this. Stop the fraternity. Find them. Guess what? The Rooney Rule is terrible for the majority of everything because it just gives stupid interviews to people that are not going to stand a chance anyway. But then you get Brad Holmes. We had this tonight. You know what I'm saying? We had all of this. Be real here. This is 2024. We don't need a fraternity here. We don't need a closed fraternity like the Skull and Bones in Yale. We choose yours. We need everybody to have themselves a shot. We need it with schools. We need it with people making money. We need it for everyone. And the way that people hate the Rooney Rule, you see the majority of the thing. But guess what? We hate the Rooney Rule because it was forced. But it's forced because a lot of your heads are still in the sand over people. You have the thought process. It can end if you're going by merit. There's a lot of good coaches. Gerard Mayo's a hell of a good shot. Hell of a good choice. Great mind. Do you want to know who that came from? Bill Belichick.
Yep.
It's like Gerard Mayo's a hell of a choice. But you know who was a hell of a – I'm saying this. There are a lot of hell of the choices. We said this, Gerard Mayo, but Dan Campbell, obviously, for Detroit. But D'Amico Ryans, all of these. We'll go to another thing over the years, Bruce Arians. But I use Bruce Arians for a reason. Bears didn't go get him. And so all of these things that happened – in this world, the first, some of the first black coaches, some of the first women coaches could have been Chicago Bears. He could still be there by now, but they don't make the right choices. This is the thing. Get your heads out of your you-know-whats. We're not going to say this, we got to think about that. Get your heads out of your you-know-whats and get our life. Get into the 2024. If you don't want the Rooney Rule to be around, use merit, real merit. Whoever is the best. May the best man win. Okay. Or woman now.
We'll turn over to George.
Well, the Jim Harbaugh merry-go-round continues, but it's got a little different slant this year, of course, because he has a little bit more going for him with the national championship in his back pocket. But here we go again. Chargers, the Falcons. Jim is going to shop himself around. And then the reports are out there that he is demanding such unreal kind of guarantees from University of Michigan should he decide to stay. And some of those guarantees are obviously a little bit disturbing, I think, to several of the people in the Michigan family. One of which is, if I get suspended or if I get so and so, you're not going to deduct me pay. You're not going to tear up my contract. He wants these kind of guarantees, supposedly, allegedly, we're hearing, if he stays at U of M with a new deal, and obviously wants the money that'll be probably the top contract for a college coach in football. So, but again, we're used to this here. Ann Arbor is used to this. Jim seems to have a tendency the last several years of shopping his wares around as far as going back to the NFL. But it doesn't hurt as much, I think, this year, because obviously he has the championship trophy. His players deserved that with a perfect season. And if he goes, I think a lot of people would just say, well, then let him go. I mean, he accomplished with a lot of stress the championship this season. And if he does decide to go, I don't think Michigan can. They will have a lot of ground to make up, though, obviously, because a lot of their players have already declared for the NFL draft. But, I'm sure that Harbaugh is going to have the best situation that he wanted. Either way, he's going to get a lot of money. He's going to cash in on that championship. But he did one hell of a job in 9 years at U of M.
Okay, Denzel, you have the final point.
All right. So this one I had to get off of all of my chest here. So during the inaugural Chicago Bulls Ring of Fame ceremony, whenever Jerry Krause was honored, the crowd voraciously booed. It actually moved his widow, Thelma Krause, to tears. And those weren't just tears. She's already, there, to honor her husband and everything like that. And it was ferocious boos from the crowd and everything, and had the woman weeping right then and there. They had his Jerry Krause image on the screen and everything. Everyone started booing, and even afterwards, one of the announcers admonished the crowd for booing during that time period. Here's my thing, and we brought him up on Basket Bros of yesterday episodes. You could say, first of all, as far as his, stint, it was him versus Phil Jackson and everything, and yeah, they may have had their differences, okay? But not once, at least not me, not once have I ever heard of the owner stepping in between them two and going, okay, here's what's going to happen, and calming both men down and coming up with some sort of resolution. And this right here is my theory, is people as fans give owners too much of a pass. Too much of a pass. I said it when LeBron left Cleveland the first time. I said it was Dan Gilbert's fault for not putting a team around that man. Now, I know not everyone's a fan of LeBron in that school, okay? Those are just my sentiments then, and they're my sentiments now. The context is you give the owner too much of a pass. Number two, regardless of how you may feel about Jerry Krause, that man constructed the Bulls dynasty. End of story, okay? And to the crowd that booed him, to the crowd that moved his widow to tears because of the reaction, you're acting like a bunch of spoiled brats. And everyone's lucky that this is not rated R here, because I really wanted to go off. But here's the deal. Regardless of how you may feel about Jerry Krause, you won 6. 6. A lot of franchises don't even have 1. 6. Stop acting spoiled. Period. That's how you act. I mean, there have been some obnoxious fan bases, but it seemed like in one night, they just shot straight to the top. And I know it's not all Bulls fans. I'm only going at the ones that were there that night, but they represent a fan base. And believe it or not, just like I know some credible, Dallas Cowboys fans that are realistic. And we know that's the worst fan base, Shout out to my Khalil Kifu. Shout out to Megan Price. Realistic Dallas Cowboys fans. But it's the obnoxious ones that speak for the fan base. That's why we give the reaction we do, right? Bulls fans, don't do this. Don't do this. You're better than this. Way better. There have been way more obnoxious fan bases in the NBA. Don't do this, okay? Without Jerry Krause, you don't win 6. I don't care how great Michael Jordan is. Yeah, I said it, and I'll say it again. Without Krause, you don't win 6. I don't care how great Michael Jordan is. You know why? Because he wasn't winning that in the 80s when he was getting beat down by the Pistons, when he was getting beat down by the Celtics, and it took him it took him beating an old, injured Lakers squad to win ring number 1. Let's go ahead and get that real. He didn't start winning until Phil Jackson got promoted from assistant coach to head coach and took Doug Collins' spot. He didn't start winning until Scottie Pippen came into the fold. Who was behind that? Oh, yeah, that's right. So you may want to show a little bit more respect. I know I've had my reservations about Jerry Krause a little bit, but I wouldn't go this far. I acknowledge he constructed the very team that you revere. That's all I got.
Well, you know what? I enjoyed that. That was really good because you fall into the GMTA category. Great minds think alike. And for a lot of those individuals that booed Matthew Stafford last week, you know what? And I know there's a select few that did, and I don't know if I'll put it on that level. That was bad because Matthew Stafford gave everything that he could to that city as well. So for the fans that are booing for all the wrong reasons, it's one thing, but Jerry Krause did not deserve what he ended up getting. All right, with that said, okay, I just want to say one more time, in case you're joining us, Pundit, it's being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Please, you can participate in the chat room or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, call me at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, eventually Instagram. Website, www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X @TribuneSouth. Candy Eveling's behind the scenes, also does producing. My book is out, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, available on Kindle and Amazon. Mainly, you're talking about old school media versus new school media. Everybody can learn from this book. I encourage you to get one because I don't care if you're in the business or you're out of the business, you can definitely gain. And GVN TV will launch on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and mobile devices. It will be in 85% of the homes in the U.S., in Canada, and 4.1 billion mobile devices. The only two shows that they have that'll be on that. That'll be Pundit and the Sports Exchange. And of course, Denzel appears on the Sports Exchange. Jacob does, George, and of course, JBL is. So, and of course, I like Ian Hill because he says I can't take a breath. So he has to ask me a question to get me to stop. Good luck, pal. You're just joining the party. You'll never be able to get me to stop talking. If you think you are, then, then miracles. The only miracle you'll have is a miracle on ice, not the miracle to shut me up because I didn't get a hat to Motor City. Mild mouth, only the Motor City. Mad mouth. All right. With that said, Denzel Snipes, why don't you let everybody know they can hold you?
All right, Denzel Snipes 13 on Twitch, Twitter, NellyNell13. Denzel Snipes on Facebook, Denzel Snipes 13 on YouTube.
Jacob Christner.
Yes, the Jake the Pundit on Twitter, X, Jake the Pundit 1 on TikTok, Jacob Christner on Facebook, and then 5 dates a week here and at Sideline Sports.
George Eichhorn.
Yeah, the best way to reach me is on the South Florida Tribune website. Drill down to Motor City Tribune. You can read my columns there, my stories. And at the end of my story, there's a link. If you care to look at my book or purchase it, there's a link to the Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air is the name of the copy, the book. And you can also reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com and on LinkedIn under my name, George Eichhorn, and follow me on Inside the Pigskin, 108 Stitches, the Sports Exchange, and Pundits Punted. Fire Up, a great show, great network you got going for us, Scott and Candy and JB with this partnership with Sideline, and looking forward to more.
And also George Eichhorn wrote the forward for my book as well. Then again, he's prominently featured as well as even Denzel and Jacob made it in there as well, JB, and the rest of a lot of the important Sideline crew that has enabled this relationship to materialize. All right, with that said, that concludes this edition of Pundits Pundit. On behalf of George Eichhorn, Denzel Snipes, and Jacob Christopher, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the football. We will see you next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night.